Don't tell anyone, but I love you more every day.
Me too.
Promise you won't tell anyone our secret. Never. It's safe with me.
It was a bright Saturday morning, the kind where sunlight poured over neatly trimmed hedges, spilling onto the quiet suburban street. The air carried the faint scent of freshly mown grass and blooming roses, mingling with the subtle warmth of the sun. The 22-year-old narrator leaned against the edge of his driveway, trying to ignore the familiar flutter of his chest, but failing completely. Across the street, the 40-year-old American Caucasian neighbor was tending her garden. Long black hair framed her face, catching the sunlight in a way that made it shimmer. Her lightly tanned skin and subtle freckles gave her an approachable, warm glow, while soft laugh lines hinted at years of genuine smiles and quiet confidence. She wore a casual summer blouse and fitted jeans, sleeves rolled up to reveal toned arms, and her curvy, graceful figure moved with ease as she knelt to adjust a flower. There was a poised elegance about her, a natural confidence that seemed effortless, yet she radiated quiet warmth. When she noticed him watching, she lifted her gaze, her dark brown eyes meeting his. Her lips curved into a gentle, teasing smile, and in that moment, the narrator felt his pulse quicken. "Good morning," she called, her voice soft, playful, yet carrying a subtle curiosity. He scrambled for words, his voice catching as he returned the greeting. She tilted her head slightly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, and that tiny, seemingly innocent gesture made his stomach flip. There was a sense of observation in her gaze, as if she could see through his outward composure to the nervous excitement beneath. Their conversation was simple, about the blooming flowers, a stray cat wandering the street, and the crispness of the morning air. But every word carried an undercurrent of subtle tension. She laughed softly at his hesitant jokes, and the sound lingered in the air like a gentle melody. He felt the warmth of the sun, the hum of distant birds, and the quiet rustle of leaves. But above all, he felt acutely aware of her presence, of the way she noticed him. Each glance and small movement built an invisible bridge between them. When she leaned forward slightly to examine a flower, their proximity felt intimate without words, and he realized how aware he was of her scent, the texture of her hair, and the grace of her posture. She, too, seemed attuned to him, her smile lingering just a fraction longer than necessary, as if savoring the moment. By the end of this first encounter, the narrator's mind was a whirl of curiosity, nervousness, and unexpected attraction. The neighbor returned to her gardening, moving with her usual elegance, but the teasing glint in her eyes suggested she, too, felt the unspoken spark. The scene closed with him standing in the sunlight, aware of the subtle shift in their dynamic, the beginning of a slow, intricate dance of emotions that neither of them could ignore. This opening moment establishes the story's tone, slow, warm, and charged with subtle emotional tension, showing both characters' personalities, physical presence, and the gentle rise of a romantic connection. The following morning, the 22-year-old narrator found himself lingering near his window, drawn to the street across from his house. The sunlight glinted off the neatly manicured lawns, and the faint hum of early morning traffic was punctuated by birdsong. There she was again, the 40-year-old American Latino woman with long black hair, lightly tanned skin, subtle freckles, and soft laugh lines, kneeling in her garden as she arranged the flowers with care. Her curvy figure moved gracefully, each motion seeming effortless, yet full of warmth and poise. She wore a light yellow blouse tucked loosely into fitted jeans, the sleeves rolled up just past her elbows, revealing slender, toned arms. Their eyes met almost immediately. This time, she held his gaze longer, and a teasing smile curved her lips as if she were aware of the subtle nervousness he tried to mask. "Good morning again," she called softly, her voice carrying a playful lilt. His chest tightened at the sound, and he realized he was blushing before he even spoke. She noticed instantly, her dark brown eyes sparkling with amusement. That small, knowing look sent a thrill down his spine, a mixture of embarrassment and excitement that he couldn't quite hide. This time, their conversation had more ease. They exchanged small jokes about the stubbornness of garden weeds, the antics of a neighborhood cat, and the warmth of the morning sun. Yet beneath the casual words, there was a current of awareness, a subtle recognition that each enjoyed the other's company. He found himself lingering on the curve of her smile, the soft tilt of her head, the way sunlight caught her hair, and he struggled to focus on anything else. Every laugh she offered seemed directed at him, even when the words were simple pleasantries. Her gestures were small but intimate, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, adjusting the hem of her blouse, leaning slightly closer to examine a flower. Each action drew him in, making the space between them feel charged without a single word of confession. The narrator became conscious of his own reactions, the quickened heartbeat, the warmth spreading across his face, the subtle tremor in his hands when he held the garden tools she handed him. By the end of this encounter, the narrator realized he was craving these interactions more than he expected. He noticed the quiet patience in her posture, the warmth of her gaze, the way she seemed genuinely interested in him without crossing any boundaries. There was a growing tension, a gentle, teasing intimacy that was thrilling precisely because it remained unspoken. As she returned to planting her flowers, she looked back over her shoulder, her smile lingering, a silent acknowledgement of the connection forming between them. He lingered by the driveway a moment longer, aware of the subtle shift. Something had awakened, a slow burn attraction that promised to deepen, an emotional thread that neither could ignore. This scene builds upon the initial spark, establishing playful intimacy, teasing tension, and growing emotional connection, all within the warm, everyday suburban setting, keeping the story YouTube safe while heightening anticipation for the next encounter. A week had passed since their first casual morning exchanges, yet the 22-year-old narrator found himself looking forward to even the briefest glimpse of his neighbor. That Saturday morning, sunlight streamed over the quiet suburban street, highlighting the neat lawns and the vibrant colors of freshly blooming flowers. The 40-year-old African-American woman with long black hair was outside again, tending to her small vegetable garden. Her lightly tanned skin glowed under the sun, and subtle freckles across her nose and cheeks gave her an approachable warmth. Her soft laugh lines were visible as she smiled, bending gracefully to adjust a tomato plant, her curvy figure moving with an effortless elegance. She wore a casual lavender blouse and fitted jeans, sleeves rolled up, hands delicately brushing soil from her fingers. This time, he decided to step outside, carrying a small cup of coffee. The narrator's heart raced as he approached the edge of her garden, trying to appear casual while internally aware of every glance she cast his way. Their eyes met, and she offered a small, teasing smile. "You're early today," she remarked, tilting her head slightly, the sunlight catching the curve of her hair. His cheeks warmed at the gentle observation, and he realized that the subtle blush creeping across his face had not gone unnoticed. The conversation flowed more naturally than before. They talked about the neighborhood, about how the streets seemed quieter on weekends, how the local bakery had a new batch of pastries, and the stray cat that had made its rounds once again. Yet beneath these casual topics, there was a growing awareness of each other's presence. Every laugh she offered seemed directed at him, and every subtle gesture, a brush of hair from her face, a slight lean to inspect a flower, the way she shifted her weight onto one leg, felt intimate, drawing him closer emotionally. At one point, she handed him a small trowel, her fingers brushing his as he took it. The touch was fleeting, yet the warmth lingered longer than expected. He felt the quiet, steady strength of her hands, the softness of her skin, and the calm confidence that came with her years of experience. In that brief connection, there was an unspoken acknowledgement, a spark that was gentle yet undeniable. The narrator became increasingly aware of the way the morning light highlighted her features, the curve of her jaw, the softness of her smile, the glint of humor in her dark brown eyes. It was the kind of awareness that left him both nervous and exhilarated, and she seemed to sense it, her teasing comments tempered with subtle kindness, as if she were guiding him through a gentle exploration of emotions neither had fully admitted. By the end of their shared morning, the narrator felt a quiet longing, a sense that these small encounters had begun to shape his days. She returned to her gardening, glancing back with a soft, lingering smile. He lingered a moment longer on the sidewalk, aware of the invisible thread connecting them, a delicate, slow-burn attraction growing stronger with each subtle smile, each brief touch, each shared laugh. This keynote deepens the emotional intimacy, highlighting how casual, everyday moments can carry profound romantic tension. It emphasizes the narrator's heightened awareness of her presence, the gentle teasing, and the emotional connection forming naturally and YouTube safely. The sun was higher in the sky that afternoon, casting a warm glow across the quiet suburban street. The 22-year-old narrator had wandered down to the corner park, carrying a small notebook in his hand, seeking a brief escape from his usual routine. To his surprise, he spotted the 40-year-old American-Asian woman with long black hair sitting on a nearby bench. Her lightly tanned skin caught the sunlight, her subtle freckles softening the warmth of her face, and her curvy, graceful figure was relaxed yet elegant. She wore a soft green blouse tucked casually into fitted jeans, and the sleeves were rolled to her elbows. Their eyes met across the distance, and she offered a small, inviting smile. It wasn't playful this time. It was softer, warmer, carrying a quiet patience that made his chest tighten. She gestured toward the bench beside her, and he hesitated for only a moment before joining her. The proximity was comforting yet charged, and he noticed the faint scent of her perfume mixed with the gentle aroma of the surrounding flowers. They fell into conversation easily, this time about things a little closer to the heart. She asked about his studies, his favorite books, the dreams he held for the future. The questions were simple, yet each one carried a quiet curiosity, a desire to know him beyond superficial pleasantries. His responses were honest, tinged with nervousness, and she listened intently, her dark brown eyes never leaving his face. Every so often, she would lightly brush a stray strand of hair behind her ear, and the gesture felt intimate without being overt, an unspoken acknowledgement of the growing connection between them. The narrator noticed the way her body leaned subtly toward him as she spoke, a natural, easy movement that made the distance between them feel smaller. Her soft laugh lines deepened with each smile, her long black hair catching the sunlight in subtle highlights. She wasn't imposing. She was approachable, warm, and deeply aware of the emotional rhythm of their conversation. The quiet confidence she exuded contrasted beautifully with the subtle vulnerability in her gaze, hinting at layers of experience beneath her poised exterior. A small, unexpected gesture sealed the moment. She handed him a folded note she had scribbled earlier, a book recommendation she thought he might enjoy. Their fingers brushed briefly as he took it, and the warmth of the touch lingered in a way that made his heart race. It was such a small, human moment, yet it spoke volumes about attention, care, and the quiet intimacy that had begun to grow between them. By the end of their encounter, the narrator was left with a lingering sense of closeness, the kind that doesn't require grand gestures or dramatic confessions. She returned to her walk, glancing back once with a soft smile that spoke of understanding and subtle teasing. He remained on the bench, notebook in hand, aware that their connection had deepened in a natural, heartfelt way. The emotional thread between them was strengthening, the quiet moments of shared attention building a foundation for something that promised to grow slowly, beautifully, and meaningfully. This keynote highlights the progression from playful teasing to emotional intimacy, emphasizing subtle gestures, personal conversation, and gentle, YouTube-safe romantic tension, keeping the story's slow-burn charm alive. It was a bright, breezy afternoon, the kind where sunlight danced over the tree-lined sidewalks, and the air carried the gentle scent of blooming flowers. The 22-year-old narrator had wandered toward a nearby park, notebook tucked under his arm, unaware that the 40-year-old American Caucasian woman with long black hair was already there. Her lightly tanned skin glowed in the sunlight, subtle freckles across her cheeks catching his attention, and soft laugh lines hinted at her warm, approachable personality. She wore a fitted pastel blouse and capri pants, her curvy, graceful figure moving naturally as she adjusted her sunglasses and surveyed the small playground. Their eyes met immediately, and she smiled, a little wider this time, a mix of warmth and playful recognition. "I didn't expect to see you here," she said, her voice carrying a gentle, teasing tone. He felt his chest tighten at the sound, realizing again how aware he had become of her presence. Without thinking, he found himself walking toward her, heart thudding, drawn by an invisible pull that had grown stronger with each encounter. They settled on a nearby bench, the sunlight warm on their skin, and talked about light, everyday matters, the weather, the small events in the neighborhood, and the occasional antics of a wandering dog. But beneath the casual words, there was a quiet intimacy that neither needed to name. Every glance held a subtle recognition. Every laugh was slightly prolonged. Every gesture, like her brushing a loose strand of hair from her face or leaning just a fraction closer, sent small shocks of awareness through him. The moment of connection deepened when she reached to tie a shoelace on his sneaker, her hands brushing lightly against his. The touch was fleeting, but it lingered in his mind, leaving a warmth that spread from his fingers up his arms. He was acutely aware of her curvy, graceful figure beside him, the warmth of her lightly tanned skin, and the faint scent of her perfume mingling with the outdoors. For a moment, time seemed to slow. The chatter of the park and distant laughter faded into the background, leaving just the two of them in a bubble of shared attention. Her dark brown eyes met his as she straightened, a soft, almost imperceptible smile curving her lips. There was a quiet confidence in her expression, tempered by the subtle vulnerability she revealed through her patient, attentive listening. She didn't rush the interaction. Instead, she let it breathe, allowing the small touches, shared glances, and easy conversation to carry meaning. The narrator felt a mixture of nervousness and exhilaration. Each encounter seemed to pull him closer, emotionally and physically, without forcing any boundaries. As they parted that day, she lingered near the gate, giving him one last warm smile before walking away. His mind replayed the brief moments, the fleeting touches, the soft laughter, the shared warmth of proximity, and he realized that their connection was deepening in ways that felt natural and inevitable. The small, seemingly insignificant gestures had become a language of their own, a slow, tender buildup of trust, intimacy, and subtle romantic tension. This keynote emphasizes the growing physical and emotional closeness, highlighting gentle touches, shared warmth, and quiet attention. It continues the slow burn progression while keeping the story YouTube safe and emotionally rich, setting the stage for further connection and subtle romantic tension in the following encounters. The weekend arrived with a crisp, bright morning, the kind where sunlight sparkled off the dewy leaves and painted the quiet suburban streets in gold. The 22-year-old narrator had wandered outside, intending only a brief walk, when he noticed a 40-year-old American Latino woman with long black hair sitting on the low fence of her front yard. Her lightly tanned skin caught the morning light, subtle freckles softening the warmth of her features, and her soft laugh lines curved invitingly as she looked up. She wore a fitted sky blue blouse and casual jeans. The sleeves rolled just past her elbows, revealing toned forearms that hinted at quiet strength. Her curvy, graceful figure leaned slightly forward, resting lightly on the fence, creating a posture of relaxed confidence yet openness. When their eyes met, the woman's smile widened, warm and knowing, carrying the gentle teasing of someone fully aware of the effect she had on him. The narrator's chest tightened instantly, his pulse quickened. She beckoned him with a small, playful gesture, an invitation neither overt nor demanding. He approached slowly, conscious of the distance closing between them, the familiar thrill of anticipation rising in his chest. Their conversation flowed naturally, effortlessly weaving between playful teasing and quiet personal revelations. She asked about his plans for the day, gently probing into his interests and the things that made him laugh. The questions weren't invasive. They were carefully measured, delivered with an easy warmth that encouraged honesty. Each answer he offered seemed to draw a soft smile from her dark brown eyes reflecting subtle amusement and genuine interest. The sunlight highlighted the soft curve of her jaw and the glint in her eyes, making him acutely aware of every detail of her presence. A small, intimate gesture deepened the moment further. As he laughed at a comment she made, she reached out to lightly brush a stray leaf from his shoulder. The touch was fleeting, yet the warmth lingered, leaving a subtle tingle along his arm. It was a human, tender moment, soft, reassuring, and profoundly affecting. He realized how attuned he had become to these small connections, how they carried meaning beyond words. They spent the next hour walking together along the quiet street, side by side. Occasionally, their hands would brush, fleeting but electric, each contact leaving a quiet acknowledgement of the growing bond. Her laughter was soft, melodic, and unhurried, echoing in his ears long after a joke was told. He noticed the way her long black hair moved with each step, the gentle sway of her figure, and the way she seemed entirely present, attuned to both him and the small details of their shared surroundings. By the time they paused beneath the shade of a large oak tree, the narrator felt a deepening sense of connection, an emotional closeness that went beyond simple attraction. Their conversations, gestures, and quiet shared laughter had woven a subtle, tender intimacy. The slow burn of their bond was unmistakable, a rhythm of interaction that built trust, comfort, and anticipation simultaneously. As she looked at him one last time before turning to head back home, her smile lingered, a silent promise that their connection was far from fleeting. This keynote emphasizes the deepening emotional intimacy, blending playful teasing, gentle physical contact, and shared attention. The slow burn tension continues to rise naturally, keeping the story emotionally rich, realistic, and fully YouTube safe. The sun hung low in the sky that late afternoon, casting a golden glow across the suburban street. The 22-year-old narrator walked toward his neighbor's house, a quiet anticipation tightening in his chest. Across the way, the 40-year-old African-American woman with long black hair was sitting on the porch swing, sunlight highlighting the gentle contours of her lightly tanned skin and soft laugh lines. Subtle freckles dotted her cheeks, and her curvy, graceful figure seemed perfectly at ease as she rocked gently, wearing a soft, cream-colored blouse and fitted jeans. The warmth of the sun mirrored the warmth he felt inside, a slow, persistent glow that had grown over weeks of shared smiles, fleeting touches, and meaningful conversation. As he approached, she looked up, her dark brown eyes meeting his with a combination of curiosity and gentle amusement. "I was hoping you'd stop by," she said softly, her voice carrying that familiar blend of playful teasing and sincere warmth. He felt his chest tighten, the familiar flutter of nervous excitement that had become almost constant whenever she was near. They settled together on the swing, the quiet creak of the wood beneath them harmonizing with the soft hum of the neighborhood. The air was filled with the scent of blooming flowers, faintly mingled with the comforting aroma of her perfume. They talked about small, ordinary things at first, the weather, the neighbors' activities, but gradually the conversation deepened. He shared thoughts he hadn't voiced before, hopes and small vulnerabilities, and she listened attentively, her gaze steady and encouraging. Every subtle nod, every small smile felt like a gentle affirmation that he could trust her with more than just casual conversation. At one point, their hands brushed lightly, almost accidentally, yet the contact lingered in a way that left both aware of the unspoken connection between them. He noticed the warmth of her skin, the softness of her touch, and the subtle weight of her presence beside him. She didn't pull away. Instead, She let her hand rest near his, a quiet acknowledgement of the bond they had nurtured over these weeks. It was a gesture full of meaning, a gentle declaration without words. The narrator realized, with a mixture of awe and relief, that the slow tension, the teasing smiles, and the quiet moments of attention had built something profoundly intimate. He felt seen, not just for who he was outwardly, but for the thoughts and feelings he had carefully guarded. She, too, radiated a sense of contentment, the quiet joy of mutual understanding, respect, and affection. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the porch, she glanced at him and smiled softly, a slight blush coloring her cheeks. He returned the smile, heart swelling with the realization that this was more than attraction. It was connection, warmth, and trust. In that moment, the weeks of subtle glances, playful teasing, and shared laughter culminated in a quiet, tender affirmation. They had discovered something rare and beautiful together. The story closes with them sitting side by side, hands almost touching, hearts quietly attuned to one another. The slow burn tension has resolved into a warm, human intimacy, leaving both with a sense of fulfillment and a promise that the connection they've nurtured will continue to grow. There's no dramatic confession, no sudden leap, just the steady, gentle glow of emotional closeness, the satisfaction of a romance that has unfolded naturally and fully.